Hello everyone. This was a good week of chapters, with Black Clover continuing its hot streak of extremely exciting chapters, and with the final chapter of Earthchild. So we'll be starting off with Black Clover, chapter 336, and this was another great chapter in a streak of them thus far since its return. The chapter itself is the mourning of Asta as Noelle, Nero, and Mimosa report what they saw and how Asta quote-unquote died. We see that the other captains are stunned by this, and even Yuno gets involved as he was off dealing with something, which we find out was Lucius sending Ezremelich, I think it was, the other supreme devil that helped him get Lucifero's heart. He went to distract Yuno with a bunch of other high-end devils, probably the last that ever existed, given how Lucius has purified the underworld. It was surprising to see that Yuno was able to take out all of the high-grade devils that were there outside of Ezremelich. I think it was something close to that. That supreme devil was able to escape and report back to Lucius, as Lucius has apparently 4 paladins thus far. And one of them we could see his sister Lily. I think the second one was the Scales guy, the royal kind of prosecutor against Asta. He was the one who originally saw Lucius quote-unquote turn. So the fact that it looks like Lucius actually was able to purify him right away is genuinely very shocking. That's a genuine power level threat that Lucius now has under his control. Lily wasn't much of anything, and then the power-up made her very powerful. So now I can only imagine what an actual powerful character being powered up is going to do. We see how the other captains react to Asta's demise and Julius's betrayal, or Lucius's, as they're trying to figure out what to do. Yami looks the most pissed, given that his star pupil and his mentor seemingly betrayed or disappeared. One betrayed, one died. He calls for Noct to see what he has to report, and we find out that Noct can find any shadow within a certain radius. However, he can't go to other continents or other worlds or for the dead, and he can't find Asta's shadow, thus leading to one of these 3 options, which is not actually a bad thing, because no matter what, he's too far away to help right now, so he is gone, according to at least what Noct had said. The chapter ends with Asta being washed up, more or less, onto a shore while still bleeding to death, when a mysterious figure seemingly finds him and was awaiting his arrival. So now we have a great mystery there, which I'm assuming we'll end up seeing quite a bit of it. I don't think it's just going to leave us there. We go back to Yuno and the captains, and as their fight continues, Asta arrives and we get a flashback. I don't think it's going to do that. I think they'll go side by side. If anything, we might go to only Asta, seeing what's happening there, this new continent / dimension, and see how he trains to get stronger while the other side simply doesn't do anything for the few days before Judgment Day, where then we might bounce back to them during that big war battle where we see the captains and Yuno and a couple of the other main characters arrive to try to stop Lucius, where Lucius has his army of paladins and probably purified demons as an army to destroy the world as we know it. So overall, I think I'll give this chapter an A. It was great seeing, again, the reaction of everyone with Asta's death and the intrigue of where Asta is. I think the way that this arc has started off has been extremely good, leading to intrigue and many other facets of how this final story arc can go. This feels like it's building to a big event for the final arc of Black Clover. Who knows, this could be, in a manner of speaking, like, say, Bleach, where we eventually come back to Black Clover every so often to see a different adventure from Asta and the crew as they go around maybe seeing other continents now that we know that they do exist, which was, I think, a very nice reveal, / even other dimensions that seemingly also exist. So there's a lot left to explore, but for one final story arc, I think this is starting off extremely well for the finale of Black Clover. So now we're on to Mission Yozakura Family, chapter 145, and this was a good chapter showing Shion trying to get her main Momo finder up and running, but her in-home server room is not big enough or powerful enough to use it. The upgrade is too big. So she asks Teo for help to help her keep cool while she's trying to find a server to borrow from, seeing as how she seemingly has a fever because she's working herself too hard. There we see that she's trying to steal from the cyber demon gold ranked spy, the one that was always that little demon ball. So she's trying to steal from them, as we then see that they then have banter because the demon cyber spy was able to detect her presence, and they start bantering back and forth, and we see they have a similar relationship to Futaba and Futaba's friend, the cyborg. So another connection between a high-ranking spy member and the Yozakura family, as their banter was rather fun, as they both seem to be rivals as well as friends. When Shion takes the upper hand, shutting down the cyber spy for 3 seconds, and that's enough time to steal one of their servers, so that then her Momo finding program is able to boot up right away. The cyber spy is able to return and is still arguing with Shion when their display goes down and we see who they really are. And again, they are seemingly just a kid or about the same age as Shion, and they're just very tech savvy. It's rather funny. They put their avatar back up, and now the two of them are bantering once again. Shion blackmailing the cyber spy to get whatever ridiculous thing she wants, and so on. It's a fun chapter, another one where they're setting up more character interactions for future use type of thing, future stories, as they're still trying to find Momo. So overall, I think I'll give this chapter a B. It was good seeing more banter between the characters, another good filler chapter as we are still trying to find Momo. I am curious to know what maybe the next sibling is that gets a highlight here, because it might be another instance where we're going to lose another 2 family members to Momo, Shion and maybe the youngest brother, Nanao. I think that would be interesting if he steals another 2, and by the end we have to have all the gold rank spies show up to save the day to help the Yozakura family, because all of them but the main brother, the oldest brother, are corrupted because there's nothing he can do. Maybe even he gets corrupted, who knows. There's a lot of intrigue with the fact that I could see all of them getting corrupted, and then all of the gold rank spies have to work together to save the Yozakura family with Teo, because Teo's the only one who's not corrupted. And then you have single one-on-one battles with everyone. Every gold rank spy seemingly has something with a Yozakura family member, and then Teo, being a Yozakura family member, has something against Momo. It could be very interesting if that's the route they're going to go. I think that would be fairly fun, as they then try to go again to find Momo. 2 more get captured, 2 more we see that have connections with a gold rank spy, and then we do it again 2 more times, but each time we get something new from the connection between gold rank spy and Yozakura family member. So there's a lot of intrigue here. It could also just be a straight up fight right now, but I think there might be a little bit more life in the fact that we're going to get multiple building of characters into them being corrupted, into gold rank spy has to save their counterpart in the Yozakura family. So that should be fun if it goes that way. So now we're on to Undead Unluck, chapter 125, and this was a good chapter as we're finally starting the wheel into the next timeline. We see that Fuko is ready to go, as well as Andy, and so we find out that anyone who sits at the first seat of the round table will be able to use the arc. However, you need to have a certain amount of points to use the arc, and the way you get points is completing missions, being a part of said missions to complete them, and the like. Fuko does not have enough points, only 4, having helped with Spoil and Autumn, so she just doesn't have enough. However, we find out again that the points are transferable, and so Victor is seemingly able to escape his kind of prison inside of Andy, quote unquote, to pop through and offer all of his points, all thousands and thousands and millions of years worth of points, to Fuko, which will give her plenty. So with Fuko now in charge and the new boss of the union, Juiz steps down and gives her the post. We continue to see a heartfelt moment between Fuko and Juiz, as they are very much similar characters, both caring too much, but knowing that their decisions are now very important. They're similar characters in that they're very good characters, as in, like, morally good. We get to see more of Apocalypse being a dick, as he's trying to taunt Juiz, but Juiz genuinely seems to like Apocalypse, and Apocalypse seems somewhat flustered before then just sort of yelling at everyone, saying they suck. And we then see that Apocalypse announces that because there are 11 members of the Round Table, the most that has ever happened, that it will take 11 minutes before the arc is charged, and in that 11 minutes, the world has to survive, as well as the Round Table. Fuko has to stay in that first chair for all 11 minutes as Ragnarok begins. So the world is ending, and now everyone has to fight to try to defend Fuko in that chair. She is just stuck there, because I think if she gets up, the arc might not charge at all. So she has to endure that, and Juiz feels relieved as she finally gets to actually fight in this wait time, as she's always had to just sit there and let everyone else die and defend her. Now she gets to fight and defend Fuko, and she's seemingly excited about that. So overall, I think I'll give this chapter a B. It was good seeing the continued kind of maturity, the growth of Fuko, as she is ready to make this plunge into the next timeline and do whatever she can to win this time. We also see that the Moon character once again plays a role, as she's sort of the surrogate god character here, as she was the one who was able to transfer Victor's points to Fuko, and she even commented that she looks forward to seeing if this is actually the one to succeed, and is actually willing to kind of bet that it is. So there's a bunch of intrigue there, which is exciting, and the fact that we're going to actually see what Ragnarok is, so the next few chapters should be actually really exciting, seeing what level of destruction and problems that Ragnarok can cause, like what else is going to happen, because I know we still have Seal and Unruin running around causing problems, though now they'll be facing the brunt of everything. So I wonder what else is going to happen to try to stop Fuko from going into the next timeline. There's an interest there, some fun and intriguing things, and the fact that the next timeline is just going to start, I wonder how that's going to go. Like I said, I'm still hoping for a long story, as it's seemingly really building to that, but you never know. But for now, the next few chapters are going to be exciting, for it's going to be the battle to stall Ragnarok long enough for Fuko to leave and the planet to be destroyed. I do wonder what moments will be made here, as this should be an intense moment, because all of the characters are in fact going to die. It's not like it's just going to reset. I wonder how they're going to handle that, because they could handle it that we'll only follow Fuko, so we actually don't know what happened at the final battle after the 11 minutes, or if it's going to stay there as Fuko leaves, which I think would be the more interesting thing, where we get to see the final ends for all of the characters we've gotten to know thus far. That would be a bit of an interesting thing, as it would be killing them, and we would have to wait quite a bit of time before we got to see them again in the next timeline, outside of, say, Andy. So now we're on to Mashle, Magic and Muscles, chapter 122, and this was a good chapter, as we get to see what Lance's third is, and his god, which is some sort of, I think, gravity god, and it was very powerful. Even the pudding guy seemingly was a bit afraid of it for a hot minute before using his own god powers, which is ridiculous. He overpowers Lance and Dot, and because of that, Lance then has to sacrifice himself, as the pudding guy is targeting only Dot because he's the weakest one. Lance's sacrifice, however, causes Dot to power up in a way we've seen before, though we haven't seen it in a while. And I don't think we've ever seen the full extent of the power-up, so I wonder how it's going to go. But for now, it's looking like now it's going to be a one-on-one between the pudding guy and Dot. So overall, I think I'll give this chapter a B. It was good, short, having it that it's just the beginning of the battle between Lance and Dot, and with Lance now being sidelined due to sacrificing himself for the first friend he's ever had, or second, I guess, because you can count Mash and his sister as his sister, so above friendship for him. But Dot meant something to him that he was willing to sacrifice himself. So now we get to see what Dot's full potential and power is, and we get to see maybe he's enough to win, or at least enough to stall out for maybe Lance to survive, though you never know. And the fact that I don't know if they're going to win. They could always lose and another team has to come in and pick up the slack. But for now, we have just Dot versus the pudding guy. So it should be pretty interesting, as Lance still also wanted to get more information about how to cure his sister, but the pudding guy refused to give it to him. So there's still a bunch of intrigue with what's going on with Lance, and the fact that Dot has some sort of secret power, which I wonder if we're going to explore in the next chapter or the future chapters. But for now, we have an interesting battle between two idiots. So now we're on to Sakamoto Days chapter 85, and this was a good chapter showing that the kid is still not trusting of Sakamoto, as he is able to remember that Sakamoto looked differently a few hours ago as his disguise is falling apart. The kid runs away with the keys once again as Sakamoto gets distracted as his costume nearly comes apart again. The kid escapes when Sakamoto recognizes a janitor that is still working at the JCC, and we find out that that janitor is actually the kid's grandfather. We find out that the kid was raised at the JCC and that the kid is not such a bad kid. He's being led astray a little bit. We then see that same kid running around trying to find the database, but he's looked everywhere already and he can't seem to find it anywhere. He gets a call from the deer head guy, and we find out that the deer head guy is changing the mission, as he now wants the kid to shut down the defense system around the JCC so they can recreate the massacre at the JAA, the whole arc that Slur invaded. And it seems as though two people are already on their way, which is the director and the masochist guy. So it'll be interesting to see how powerful they are and how brutal this next bit of the potential arc is going to be, as even the kid didn't seem too thrilled about that prospect. So it'll be interesting if Sakamoto can save him as well as everyone, because I'm assuming that the two villains who are coming to the island are going to get there whether they like it or not, and it'll be interesting to see how they either defend the JCC and succeed, or if they fail, how many people escape and how many people amongst Sakamoto's group are able to succeed themselves. So overall, I think I'll give this chapter a B. It was good seeing the continued growth of this kid character, as he's now going from diehard Slur fan and trying to enter the group to now maybe being a bit more hesitant, as well as Sakamoto learning a little bit more about this kid character. We'll see if Sakamoto is able to finally break through and quote unquote be a father figure character to him, once again expanding the Sakamoto team core and potentially saving this kid in the process from going with Slur and so on. So there's a lot of intrigue going on here, as we just don't know what is going to happen in the next few chapters, as the database is now seemingly going to be put on the back burner, at least for Sakamoto and this kid, as the kid is now not going to look for the database but look for the weapon system if he's still going to try to join Slur. So that was all of the chapters. Again, it was very good, with Black Clover being a particular standout, with Asta's supposed death and his miraculous revival already, despite him still bleeding profusely on a beach somewhere, being saved by a mysterious figure. Mission Yozakura family was good, seeing a couple of characters bond and grow. Undead Unluck finally is entering its final bit of this particular arc before going into the final saga. Mashle had it that Lance sacrificed himself for Dot, and now Dot has a power-up, we'll see who wins that. And Sakamoto had more intrigue with another layer to the game of trying to find the database / destroy the database, with simply destroying the whole school now. So another layer to an already highly interesting list of events. So now for everything else, My Hero was fine, Jujutsu Kaisen was fine, and Blue Box was fine. Earthchild ended. Its final chapter was okay. It was fine for what it is, which is that their son, the main character's son, graduated middle school and now is starting to gain some level of independence, as the parents are now going to have to continue to grow together, as they'll always be a family, blah blah blah. The personification of the earth is going to always be watching them and trying to make sure that they still have the earth's best interests, and it was fine. As a series, it had a really nice beginning and an interesting beginning, which could have been fleshed out considerably more. Just the normal guy dating a superhero could have been interesting if they didn't mess it up right away. They messed it up almost instantaneously by cutting out what could have been a funny action adventure comedy romance thing. Cut it all out. They get married right away, and then the mother disappears. They're trying to save the mother. They do, it's over. It had a good premise in the beginning and an okay start, a really mediocre middle, and then a really bad end. The whole thing after the beginning became really not good. So for me, the series was really mediocre. I wouldn't recommend anyone read this. It was fine at best. So for the series, I would give it a D-. It was fine. Kind of glad it's over. Elusive Samurai was good, as the villain side and the good side, the two main samurai, start their duel. Things are going back and forth, and they're pretty even, though the older good guy samurai knows he has to try to take advantage of his years of experience and win early before the youth of the enemy general ends up overcoming his lack of experience. However, because the enemy other generals are dishonorable, they disguised their own warriors as a member of the hero's army and shot at the enemy general. That way, he believed there is dishonor on the hero's side and thus flew into a blind rage and is going to now try to kill everyone. Meanwhile, over in the hero's side, the heroes have a section where many of the shrine maidens are working tirelessly for other things off the field and even medical tents. That's where we find another one of the enemy other generals, attacking that place because he wants all the women. So we see that it's not quite overly honorable over there. So the battle is going to get very desperate here, and it'll be interesting to see how the heroes adapt to this ever-changing and ever-worrisome situation. P times 6 was good, as we're heading into the next battle with the one unique guy who's the mentor-ish character to Lucky, and Lucky's brother, who apparently we found out is so good at pianos, everyone's stopping him from competing because he's seemingly head and shoulders better than everyone. So it'll be interesting to see how different he plays, and the fact that he wants to show Lucky a specific side of Lucky that only he seemingly sees, and Lucky doesn't quite know yet. So it'll be interesting. The next chapter is really interesting to see what this other side of Lucky we haven't seen yet is, that his brother is able to see that no one else can. Super Smartphone was good, as we met some of the other smartphone users, and we're seeing how the alliances are being made, with some intriguing back and forth of trying to match wit and intellect to find out who's a good ally for one another. Aliens area was good, as the chapter finished with the potential ally character. We get to hear more about her backstory. There's another section of people who were anti-alien, waiting for the invasion of other aliens, but it never happened. They still seemingly exist, but they're not quite as, I don't know if they're quite as potent as they once were. Maybe they are. She had left because she fell in love with an alien and is waiting for him to return. We then see that that said alien did in fact return, but he's an evil character. He's a real villain, as he seemingly lit everyone on fire in the restaurant, even her, killing all of them. The main two characters end up going back to the restaurant as they had left to then see this carnage and meet this new villain character. Now, again, the big problem with this, I think it was actually a really good reveal and a good interesting point to this story so far, as we get to see a major villain character, a bad guy, thus far. Otherwise, everyone else has been relatively nothing. No major villain anyway, no one uber villainous and evil until right now. This character has a lot of potential to be an interesting villain character, but the problem is many of these young series have done this, and none of them were able to flesh out this major villain because it feels like an endgame boss, not the first major villain, if that makes sense. Maybe it is just the first major villain. You never know. You can always make infinitely more powerful alien villains later on, but we'll have to see if this is the main big bad or if this is just step one of many big bad characters. But with revealing a major villain this early and then not quite capitalizing on them, I'm afraid this series might end up falling into the I tell C problem, where an interesting villain character comes in, they don't want to use that character right away, have bigger plans down the line, push them to the back, try to have smaller cases go on in the meantime, and then they're cut off before they can go back to that very interesting villain character. I don't think that's a bad decision to do that. I've just seen it happen one too many times where doing that decision ends up canceling a series. So we'll see if this one avoids the mistakes of its predecessors or if it follows suit. That was all of the chapters. It was a good week of chapters, as many things really started to feel like they were picking up, especially the major chapters, as I think next week is going to be extremely exciting. I think a lot of the chapters are going to be very good. So I look forward to all of them, as I think a lot of the arcs are about to hit their upper levels sooner rather than later. So that should be very exciting. So if you enjoyed this video, please leave a like, and as always, thank you for watching.